Anyhow.
Tell us a story?
That I had to be taken off the mountain by the ski patrol.
Oh, that's awesome.
He said, we're going to be going slow, and it was a really nice sled ride. I said, he didn't go that slow. That was the good part of the experience. So thank you as always for the invitations. I do enjoy coming. You're good fun. Last time I was here, we spoke about the importance of stress and stress management and nutrition and exercise as well. But I also remember when I would teach my wellness program, the way I like to start this particular session was sometimes I say to be controversial or just kind of get your attention right away. So forgive me for this start, but your chances for health and happiness in this lifetime are severely limited.
This is inspirational, right?
But the joy, sorry?
Underneath.
But the joy for me is I love to make a point or support a position. I think you'll agree with me before I'm done why it is difficult to be truly happy and healthy. And there is a way out. I promise that I'll end with the uplifting part of this message. So, how does stress, and specifically, affect our self-esteem and then create serious problems, risks from the effects of stress? So I'd like to start actually from birth and show you what happens that, again, really does lead to a very difficult situation and why well, you know my big message is doctor's orders, go fishing. Why is it really difficult for us to really be free to be ourselves, to be unique and not get involved in too much self-criticism or be concerned about even being critical of others, and there's got to be a right way or best way instead of there's your way. So, imagine with me, if you will, starting with the birth experience. Let's even put you in the womb and appreciate what that experience is like. Now, your senses are actually operational for several months before you're actually born. So if you can appreciate with me, for example, what temperature would you only have known prior to birth? So let's say 99 degrees, right? Okay, moms, remember, what temperature is it in the delivery room? Can you appreciate that it's a good 30-degree drop in temperature?
That's where you start yelling.
That's part of why. The point is, if stress is all about change and adjustment, what unique adjustments you have to make immediately that, trust me, you are not prepared for. Okay. What about light and dark? What have you only known prior to birth? Darkness. So you can imagine that again when you're born. What is the lighting like in the delivery room? So it's largely set for the convenience, and this is not meant to be critical, for the staff in the hospital, but again, a very large adjustment for you. How about sound? So buffered by Saxon Solutions, do you appreciate that again, chances are you will have experienced sound very differently than when you are outside of the womb, and sound is going to sound really quite highly amplified. How many of you think you really appreciated being spanked? Or stretched, like you really cared how long you were? Or, you know, we focus on mom and the difficulties there can be in being born, right? And labor pains, etc. How much fun do you think it really was for you to go through that vaginal canal? All right, so if you could have voiced your experience at that time, what do you think you might have said? The most common over the years is exactly that. Put me back. So when you're within the womb, you are remarkably dependent on the mother organism. When you're born, you're not independent, but relatively speaking, you're very independent. So in my opinion, what happens day one, beyond what already has taken place within the womb, because now we know through epigenetics, so much of what the mother believes and experiences actually is transferred to you. Anyhow, so, day one, huge case of insecurity. Can you appreciate that's with you to start? Okay, we're on our way to where we're not happy.
I'm waiting.
Now, here's something else that I think you can appreciate, or maybe help you appreciate why childhood experiences are so indelible. I'm sure you've heard psychologists or others talk about it, especially the first 4 or 7 years of your life, right? And how they are so strong in helping you or determining your sense of self-esteem and so much more. So what happens is 2 things in particular. One is that your mind functions very literally when you're little. You don't have the use of reason and logic actually until you're into your teens. So I'm going to tell you a story that will probably make you laugh, but to help me make my point. I have a very good friend who actually was in elementary school one day when someone from the Women's Christian Temperance Union came in to talk about the evils of alcohol. And he said that she set up in the room with 2 jars. One, she asked a child to go out into the hallway and fill with water. And the second jar she filled with alcohol. Then he said she pulled out yet another jar with night crawlers. And she put the night crawler into the jar of water. It appeared to be okay. Then she put a worm into the alcohol. This worm's in trouble. So now she asked the class, what does this prove? And the little fella, she called and said, if you've got worms, drink. That's your literal mind at work when you're little. Here's maybe a more common example. Have you ever called someone on the phone and a very young person answers the phone? Hello, is your mother there? Yes. We don't have abstract reasoning for a few more years, so you assumed, okay, go get mom to come to the phone. That wasn't going to happen. So again, what happens is, when you have experiences early, they can be positive to be sure, it's just too often they get interpreted as negative. And so again, now, and I'm going to give you more examples, you interpret some of your life experiences to be negative, they can be very traumatic. The other part of this is emotions. Emotions are what really charge your experience and then have a great deal to do with how anything affects you. So how much emotional control does a small child have? Essentially none. You try taking a toy from a child, for example. Okay, so what happens is not only then do you experience interpreting things literally, but often very highly charged. Now as I go further, I really mean that what I'm saying today is really about you. But in my experience, you will have a tendency, I found, to think of yourself as the mother or the grandparent instead of, no, I really mean this happened to you, so you can appreciate, again, why we can get stuck. So I'm going to take you through a day in your life for fun. One day, just one day. And then appreciate that this happened day after day after day for a number of years, and then why we can become so strongly conditioned to not have such great self-esteem and so forth. So imagine, this is just as an example, that it's been rainy and muddy, and your parents needed to go somewhere, and they were going to leave you next door while they were away for a while. And it was very common for you normally to walk through the yard to get to your neighbor, but now because it's been raining, it's muddy. So the parents are very clear that when you go next door, you're to walk around on the sidewalk. You're not to cross through the yard and track mud into the house. Got it? You think that, or the parents think that, they're very clear about this. So, the time comes, the parents leave, the children are again reminded to walk around the sidewalk, go next door, and then when the parents come home, the parents would call and children, okay, now it's time to go back home. Ah! But remember, you walk around the sidewalk. They don't want you to bring the mud into the house. Okay. But terrible case of timing, the parents get a long distance important phone call and they can't be at the door when the children come to the front door. So when the call is over, the parents don't have to wonder where you are. They follow your mud tracks through the house. Now, you don't have to say, but I want you to think about this. What would your mom or dad have said to you if in fact you did that? You brought mud into the house after you'd been asked a number of times to please don't do that. What do you think might have happened to you? Spank, spank, spank? Yelling. And how do you think you interpreted that?
They don't like that.
I didn't do that.
They're mean.
Yes.
Here's what happens. When we're really, really young, we do not know how to separate the behavior from the person. So that when we are reprimanded, even for very good reasons, instead of thinking, thank you, you've done me this favor, right, you interpret it as you're being thwarted. You remember how self-centered you are. I mean, that, well, when you're little, it's all about you. Try to take that toy, no thank you. So you start to interpret this differently and a very definite sense of rejection. I don't feel loved, accepted, and what I mentioned in the comment that I gave for your blurb to announce this week is begin to equate love with conformity and pleasing others. In order to feel good about yourself, you have to, firstly, please mom and dad. And what happens, and this can make you laugh or make you a little sad, you become a lot like your parents. And it's just so logical why that's true. But let's go back to the mud. So now, let's say it wasn't a pleasant experience for you, and then how you interpreted that experience. Who's going to clean up the mud?
My sister.
So chances are, though, for mom and dad, if they let you do it, even though they like to tell you, hey, you clean it up, they know you're going to like make a mess of
Spread
it.
it like a man.
So, what we're going to do, or what you probably had to do as the parent, is they had to clean it up. So as I tend to say, then everybody goes to bed mad. Fair enough? Now, okay, you wake up in the morning, and you, as the child, have a ringside seat, the high chair. So imagine yourself in that high chair, and mom is putting together breakfast, excuse that stereotype, and in the process she bangs a couple pots and pans together, and the sound is just going to get your attention just like that. But it's going to get your attention for yet another reason, because you're likely to be thinking, boy, would I like to get my hands on those pots and pans. And God knows your day will come. So as clever as parents generally are to lock things up, put things away, and keep you from creating an insecure situation, an unsafe situation, this day, however, for whatever reason, the closets or doors or drawers did not get locked. Mom's out for the moment doing laundry, and as well as we try to keep you in that high chair, you get out, slip out, and crawl on the floor, get to those cabinet drawers and doors, and there's the pots and pans. Now, I honestly believe that curiosity is an instinct. So it's not that you're a bad kid in the way we tend to think of, oh, kids, they get into everything. It's because you're simply exercising your curiosity. I really believe that. So, from your point of view, now you're going to express your curiosity and learn. And one of the ways we do that early on is through our tactile senses. So, chances are then, once you get your hands on the first pot or pan and you appreciate its smoothness or its texture and maybe the coolness or whatever else, and then in very short order, in the mouth, right? And chances are you don't necessarily care for the metallic taste, so down it goes, yeah? But you didn't know that every other pot and pan was going to feel the same and taste the same. So imagine how many pots and pans and lids you thumbed up and licked or whatever before Mom shows up. And remember, she's probably still not very happy about last night. So what is she likely to say now? Can you only imagine what your mom might have said to you now after you dragged out 7, 8 pots, pans, lids, and so forth? So chances are Mom's thinking, I had 100 things today to do, I didn't need 100 more. So can you appreciate if only in the tone of her voice she's not going to be happy about having to do this extra job, right? So whatever tone of voice or whatever is actually said, chances are you want to get away from the scene of the crime. And this feeling actually of rejection and I'm not okay, and maybe if she even adds, good, get out of my sight. You can only imagine what might have happened, etc. So, in the meantime, now she's trying to fix up pots and pans before it occurs to her, oh my God, now what am I going to do? So I have this image when I was raised in a housing project. On our front door, they had a slot in the front door for the mail. So when the mail was delivered, it literally would just come in and drop right in this little foyer space. You just happened to be there right there when the mail came in. And what do you think the mail's going to look like in short order? So whether you crumpled it or chewed it, or again, it's not like you're bad. It's just you're curious and you're doing what you can to discover God knows what. Now Mom shows up. How do you think she's going to handle this one? So I joke, maybe she's going to try to exercise a sense of humor. You're going to grow up and be like your father's side of the family. So we do what we can to cope and somehow keep our wits about us. But again, can you appreciate chances are you're not feeling good and Mom doesn't say it in a way that makes you feel good. Off you go again, glad to get away. Mom's left to resurrect the mail, but let me really complicate this one. This would really have happened in my home. When Dad gets home, here's what my dad would likely have said when he sees what you did to his favorite magazine. So he says to my mother, what were you doing all damn day long where you're supposed to be taking care of those kids? So now what does Mom have to look forward to the rest of the day on top of you're getting into everything? And then of course again, it comes to her attention, oh my God, now where are you? And she goes, and you found her favorite plant. And you don't know that every leaf is going to feel the same and taste the same. We're not even through the first day. You getting the picture here?
Yep.
So what happens is, unfortunately, your literal mind, highly emotionally charged experiences, you take it in that it's not that I'm not okay, the behavior's not okay, but you don't know that. And so you're always, always, always trying to measure up, to fit in, and please others. And so whether indeed it starts at home, which it does, or when you get to go off to school, now you've got a whole other group to try to learn to please and fit in with. In every way, you learn how to speak, how to dress, what's cool. I'm sure cool isn't the right word anymore, you know, but it really is that experience. And I didn't think of the phenomenon of tennis shoes. I mean, even back when I was a boy, a long, long, long time ago, it was high-top black Keds tennis shoes, and you knew who was wearing Keds. And high school was PF Flyers, and you knew who was wearing PF Flyers. Even Levi blue jeans. So again, unfortunately, although I really believe in a bigger picture, that there's real purpose for this, it just makes it difficult, doesn't it? And then you can have the experience like I did of my father being a perfectionist. So if I'm going to try to be perfect and earn my Father's love, what are my chances for peace of mind and happiness?
Yeah.
Not good. Not good. So I just want to tell you one more story to just show you how even a single experience can truly be devastating and the serious, serious consequences. So, true case study. Ended up with a colleague of mine, a woman who had severe depression and gone through all of conventional treatments and even last resort treatment, shock treatment. She ends up working with my colleague and work, you know how I work. You go inside, you try to figure out, okay, what's really underlying this. And she finds herself recounting this experience in her childhood. She'd been outside playing, and Mom came to the door and called out that it's time for dinner. Come on in and wash your hands and get ready for dinner. So when you, let's imagine, so you've been in this case, it was this woman came in as a little girl. Mom was just making cookies. And you can only imagine, it is dinner time, so your chances are you're hungry. Who wouldn't want the fresh cookie anyhow? But Mom's very quick to say, hey, no cookies, you're not going to spoil your dinner, your appetite, you go wash your hands. So she turns to go do something else, and you reach for a cookie, start to eat the cookie, but unfortunately she turns around and catches you and says, God sends little girls to hell who disobey their mothers. And I'm telling you the truth, that was the beginning of a lifelong depression for that woman. In one event. So imagine, it doesn't take much, but then repeated day after day after day, all of these first years when you were so strongly susceptible to being conditioned. So, here's the deal. We've learned an outrageous number of prejudices and biases beyond our own sense of self-esteem. You know, I grew up in this housing project. We had the colored section. My father came home from the war, and chances are you experienced that too. So we're not whatever images of them. They weren't Japanese, they were Japs. They weren't Germans, they were Krauts. Do you see how this happens? And we learn how to, what ends up in this crazy New Zealand Muslim thing. And we want to brand people and label people instead of appreciate the truth of who we are. And then forgive me for the suggestion of what can happen oftentimes in some religions and the experience of being told you're born in sin. And somebody had to come and save your sorry soul. I mean, wow. I have a really good friend who's an ordained Presbyterian minister, and he says it's as though we're born with one foot in hell and one in a banana peel and we're ready to go into heaven. So what is your image of yourself? So you need to learn to forgive yourself. Do you understand that? We become so self-critical. Criticism is the epitome of no way you're going to manage your stress or think well of yourself. But it comes out of not knowing the truth of who we are. And that's what's lovely about you and this group and what you do. An attempt to relearn the truth of who you are. I even came up with what I call a new diagnostic code. You know, as a healthcare professional, we have to give you a diagnosis. You know, largely, I mean, well, we think because if we know your diagnosis, we know what to do to treat, but a lot of it has to do with insurance reimbursement as well. So I know I just ended up giving everybody the exact same diagnosis. I didn't want you having that stigma of depression or whatever else, and I forget the exact code number, but the explanation was just psychological factors affect physical health. I thought it was the greatest code I'd ever seen. But I came up with a new, pardon my sense of humor, to make a point, and it's called forgotten identity. And so I say that's the core diagnosis I would give all of us, and what is really at the core then of all of our concerns, and certainly including our health issues. So one thing you can learn to do, there's a lot, but one thing is to learn to treat yourself like a best friend. So with this example is, let's say that you knew someone who really you loved and really was depressed. And your friend came to you and said, I'm really depressed. And I don't know why I always picture this scene from Moonstruck where Cher strikes.
Oh, yeah.
Snap out. But can you appreciate, hopefully, probably, you wouldn't have smacked your friend. It just said snap out of it. How do you think you would have handled your best friend? So chances are it would have been with great empathy, and you would have been there for that person. And you don't need to know what to say. I had that asked of me so often in my work. Even van drivers driving people to their cancer treatments. You know, people have questions, they want to talk to you. What do I say? You don't have to say anything. You just have to be present. In fact, just saying, I don't know what to say. But otherwise, the idea that you're there for that person. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I'm going to be there for you and with you. I want you to say this to yourself. That's the point. I want you to love yourself like you would a best friend. Do you understand, honest? Okay. So the power of your beliefs. And I wrote down here, just as my final thoughts this morning, thinking about this. So, like the idea that we have this sinful nature, I would say if there is even such a thing as sin, it's denying your divinity. And self-love is the aligning with your core eternal nature. So I hope you'll appreciate my reminder this morning to live your new awareness, your Godness. Thank you.